Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jen and I am a graduate of architecture with a bachelor's degree from NYIT. In today's video, we're going to be reacting to some architecture fails. I felt like that would be quite interesting to watch because I did an open door. I reacted to some homes in Architectural Digest. I'm going to do more of those in the future, but I felt like it would also be a great idea to watch some architecture fails and maybe I can make some comments about them, as well as maybe if you guys want to recommend me to react to some videos, would be a great segment of my channel. So let's hop into this video, see what it's about. So this video is titled 15 Biggest Architectural Fails, and let's jump into it.
Architects are responsible for designing buildings and must ensure above all else that the building is safe and structurally sound.
That looks concerning.
One slight miscalculation,
Tremendously concerning.
Can come tumbling down. Number 15, the Death Ray Hotel. Located in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Vdara Hotel and Spa has gained fame not just for its luxury accommodations, but also its horrible death ray. Now, this death ray has been created thanks to the building's curved glass exterior that, when hit at a certain angle by the sun, causes extremely hot rays of heat to burn parts of the pool area. And while no one has actually died from this quote-unquote death ray, it's been the cause of a number of serious burns and melted plastic bags over the years. As a result, the hotel was eventually forced to address this problem, opting to use large blue umbrellas over the pool deck to protect bathers. And while this simple fix hasn't totally stopped the efforts of the death ray, it certainly helped alleviate many of the complaints surrounding it.
Wow, okay. So, this is my first time watching this video, but that's very scary because I've seen things, I actually have heard about this and the problems with having buildings that are just all made out of glass. And that is the main reason, is because of the sun and what the sun can do from reflecting off that glass. Like, there's this one story that in architecture school, my professor discussed. He was talking about how there was a building similar to that, and it was located and oriented in a direction where the sun, again, reflected off the panels and would melt the cars on that street because of how bad the heat was. Again, a building made all out of glass. It would reflect the sun rays onto the cars down on that street. It's definitely a big concern now that people are probably now more aware of. I think the main thing that they think about, or should think about now, is the way you orient the building and how the sun could reflect off. Like, think about sun's reflection. How is the sun going to reflect off of the building, and what can you do to maybe prevent that? Maybe make that wall that hits the sun not be glass, maybe change the material. You could also just instead, that's why they always say to pay attention to, it's not just about the design of the building, it's also about the location of the building. The location is just as important as what the building looks like. We've actually learned programs in school that shows us how powerful the sun would be and how much light you would get inside the building as well. Like, if it's going to be too bright or too hot, different things like that. How does the sun affect the building? So location, orientation of your building is very important. All right, let's see the next one.
Number 14. The Quebec Bridge. The Quebec Bridge stands alone for not only collapsing once, but twice due to faulty architectural design. Construction of the bridge first began in 1887, when it was made across the St. Lawrence River in order to connect Quebec City with Lévis, Quebec. However, tragedy struck when in 1907, the entire bridge came crashing down due to the weight of it being far greater than its carrying capacity, killing 75 workers in the process. Construction resumed shortly after. However, in 1916, the bridge experienced a tragedy once again, when the rehoisting devices being used on the bridge failed, causing the center part of it to fall into the river, this time killing 13 workers who were on site. Yet it seems like the third time was a charm, as in 1919 the bridge was finally completed.
With this, I just really wonder, I guess that's something that I have to research, is when did they start to really understand the engineering of bridges? Because why did it fail twice? I guess they were learning and figuring out the structural design of bridges and how they work. I cannot imagine building a bridge and it collapsing. I cannot imagine. Who got sued? Where, like, I wish that they went into that, is like what the guy, whoever designed this building, or I meant the bridge, how much were they sued for? Because I cannot imagine, especially for all the people that it killed. Oh my goodness. That's why a lot of the time in today's day, there's a whole group of people working on things together, like especially big monuments or big bridges or buildings. It's usually a whole company of people that work together to design it rather than just one person and relying on one person. So then you have multiple people to look and check the structure to make sure that it's working and that it can work.
Number 13. The Dubai Aquarium. Dubai is known for being just a little over the top, and its shopping spaces are certainly no exception. In particular, the Dubai Mall went a step above the rest when it decided to place a 2.5 million gallon aquarium smack dab in the middle of the building. However, in February of 2010, disaster struck when water began to leak out of the tank, causing the entire central mall to be evacuated. 6 divers and an army of moppers worked around the clock to try to remedy the situation, eventually sealing the leak and opening the shopping center shortly after. This was certainly quite the embarrassment for the mall's owners. Number 12.
Well, it could have been way worse. That disaster could have been way worse. If it was just a little seal and like water was leaking, the whole building could have fell apart. Water damage is probably the one thing that I learned that I made sure to keep in my mind is water is the number one thing that damages everything. Water is the most devastating. My teacher said that water is the most devastating to structure. It erodes, it destroys it. So like the fact that they just had a leak and that was it was probably best case scenario. It could have been way worse. It could have been like the structure of the whole building falling apart. Speaking of which, because we're about to watch, it says the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Let's watch this and then I have a comment about actually going to a concert.
Number 12, the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Located at Los Angeles' Disneyland, the Walt Disney Concert Hall was designed by the famed architect Frank Gehry and completed in 2003. However, the concert hall had both a curved and shiny exterior of stainless steel panels, and soon became problematic when light glaring off the building began to cause traffic accidents in the street.
I was just about to say that's very shiny, and I was literally just about to say, I was like, I wonder if that gets really hot and reflects also. I wonder if this is going to be a reflection issue.
Street below, boil nearby apartment buildings, and heat up the nearby sidewalks to as much as 60 degrees Celsius. As a result, Gehry quickly had to come up with a solution, and him and his firm eventually lightly sanded the most reflective parts of the building in order to reduce the light that glared off of them. Number 11.
So they wow, what an interesting idea. So they sanded, I wonder why that worked. I wish they went into detail on why that, sanding those parts helped with the reflection of the sun. Another thing too, what a quick and easy, simple solution. I would have thought of changing the whole material. But I was gonna say, like, before it even said that was a reflection issue, I already knew. I was like, that looks like aluminum foil. And just like, how aluminum foil acts with the sun, like I cannot imagine. So I already was like seeing that was going to be a reflection issue. But the whole thing that I was going to say about concerts was I went to a concert with me and my friend who actually went to school with me. We both went to Gov Ball and we were in one of the concerts. I think it was like stage B or stage D or something. It was one of the stages. And on that stage, I don't know if you guys know the layout of Gov Ball, like that location is not like just a flat like grassland. It's like a grassland above a bunch of like tunnels or subways or just things underneath. There's a bunch of stuff going on underneath it. And one of the stages that we were at, we were watching, it was like Little Uzi Vert. And he was there on stage. I don't know if you guys know, but during most of his concerts, everybody's jumping up and down. Everybody's jumping and they do like mosh pits and stuff. And me and my friend were looking at each other because we were really concerned because there was tons of people jumping up and down all at the same time, by the way. And the ground, like the platform that the stage was on, by the way, we were like standing on grass, but underneath it, like I said, there was some sort of tunnel or there's something underneath it that was open because you knew that like when you were jumping, it was like jumping on like beams. You knew that there was some sort of beams underneath it because of the way it was like the ground was moving with us and everybody was jumping at once. And by the way, there was like thousands of people there. We were all stuck together, on top of each other jumping. And me and my friend were looking at each other and we're like, this is really concerning because there's some other study that we did where it was like a similar situation where, especially when everybody's doing something at the same time, like there was a bridge that collapsed, even though it was a very structurally sound bridge, it still collapsed because of everybody walking at the same time. Like everybody would step at the same time, so it would swing the bridge. And that was some sort of issue because they didn't consider and they didn't understand the physics of what the impact would be if everybody were to walk at the same time. So the reason why it was such an alarming thing for me and my friend was because, did the architects that designed this stage, did they consider that, because it was a concert stage area, did they consider when designing this platform that everybody would be jumping at once? But yeah, it was interesting. It was an interesting story. Let's see what the next one is.
Number 10, the Walkie-Scorchie. After the office
it's an interesting shaped building.
Church Street in London was completed in April of 2014, it was quickly nicknamed the Walkie-Talkie due to it being shaped like the two-way radio. However, the nickname Walkie-Scorchie was soon added to this list due to the building giving off extremely hot rays.
Again, I think there was if it's interesting because a lot of these architectural fails talks about the sun rays. And I think that was because when this new modern look came about, when they started to design all the buildings made out of glass, like just these humongous buildings, just all made out of glass. A lot of the time they didn't realize, because there was no previous buildings that were just all made out of glass, they didn't realize how that affects the sun or how the sun affects the building, especially with its rays. So a lot of the time you see all these different buildings talking about how the sun rays were extremely damaging to the surrounding area.
You see, architect Raffaele Vinoli designed the building so that it would be concave in the middle, which ended up being a massive error due to it reflecting light rays on the street below. And while Vinoli admitted that the design team originally thought that the heat of this ray would be about 36 degrees Celsius, they were surprised when they found that instead it comes in at about 72 degrees Celsius on very hot days. As a result, it's been a cause of widespread damage on the street and has gained notoriety for doing everything from frying eggs and baguettes placed on the sidewalk to burning the top of a parked Jaguar convertible in the building so that
it's just so interesting to see that they were already considering what the sun rays were and they still were so off by what they were predicting.
You see, architect Raffaele Vinoli designed the building so that it would be concave in the middle, which ended
Oh, they designed the building to be concaved in the center. Like here, this area is concaving. So I guess the concaving side of it made the sun rays worse. Not sure. How were they allowed to, I guess the codes in this location, I don't know where they said it was, but how were they allowed to build the building with no, what is that called? It looks like the code regulation of how high how wide and high the building is. The reason why I'm a little bit surprised about this building is because during the time when skyscrapers were initially coming out, during the 1916s, there was code regulations during the time when they first invented skyscrapers, because they had this in like the city areas, they had this issue where these tall, massive buildings, when they were first initially creating skyscrapers, would cause this cavern-like, it would cause this massive shadow within the streets because the buildings would be too close together and too tall, so the sun wouldn't be able to pierce those areas, causing massive shadows in the street, almost creating like cave or cavern-like areas on the street. So new code regulations came out during that time, and restrictions were made to create setbacks to where the buildings had to have setbacks. So they made the building smaller, which brought in more light, as well as the taller it got, depending on the sun's light, they would have this setback at the tippy top of the buildings. So if like you see here, this one over here has like little setbacks due to the height of the building so that the sun can still pierce and reach the streets besides the building. The reason why I'm surprised is the reason why this building is massive, massive. Where were the setback regulations and how much were they given? As well as, I wonder how tall this is. Maybe it's not, it looks like there's a little bit of a setback here, but I really wonder how tall this building is. I wonder what their restrictions were and how they were allowed to create something like this. All right, now let's move on to the next.
Number 9, the Ray and Marias Data Center. Built to house several of MIT's lecture halls, offices, and auditoriums, the Ray and Marias Data Center is nothing if not unique. After all, it features a number of curved walls, sharp angles, and slanted windows that appear to defy the laws of physics. Yet while such a design may look trendy, it certainly isn't practical. This is evident because just 3 years after its 2004 opening, MIT filed a negligence suit against architect Frank Gehry due to a number of major structural issues with the building. In particular, they cited that, among other things, poor drainage was causing cracks to appear on the walls.
That's another thing that I said. Remember, water destroys structure. So the fact that they did not provide the drainage wasn't efficient is definitely concerning because, again, drainage is one of the number one causes to structural failure. So the fact that that was not provided and already the structure is questionable is concerning.
And cracks to appear on the walls. Large icicles were being formed across the rooftop, and mold was growing on the brick exterior, costing the school more than $1.5 million in repairs on a building that already cost them about $300 million. We're sure that MIT regretted giving Gehry this project.
Dang.
Of
course you want to create, the whole point of architecture is you want to create beautiful design, like a beautiful piece of art, right? You want to be that 1%. You don't want to build copy-paste buildings like everybody else. You want to be the different designer and someone who makes an impact on the world. And the fact that this guy, I'm not familiar with the architect, but I guess he's famous because I would assume his buildings look familiar. I'm not really good with remembering architects, to be honest, but except for like Le Corbusier and like Frank Lloyd Wright and those main ones that you learn in school. The school definitely saw that he was a famous architect and was like, oh, like let's pay the money to get a like beautiful designed school by a famous architect. But what is important is, where is the balance between function and design? You want to make buildings, and beautiful buildings, that work and that make sense and that are functional, rather than a beautiful piece of art that ends up destroying the area that it's placed in. Like, they have, how much do they have to pay? They had to pay so much for this, and then on top of it, they have to pay for things to be fixed. It's like, a lot of times engineers criticize architects. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the memes, but there's a lot of memes about how engineers are like, how the hell are we supposed to build this? Or how are we supposed to build this? This is some crazy design that's not possible. Because a lot of the time, architects want to build impossible. They want to build these crazy designs. But it's, again, you have to be realistic, because sometimes designs aren't going to work, especially for the structure. And that's where you need to find a balance, where does design and where does function play? You know, design over function, function over design. Yeah, it's pretty, but it doesn't work. You have to make something that is pretty, it's a beautiful design, but is also structurally sound.
Number 8. Lotus Riverside. Typically speaking, mud is not exactly the best material to build an apartment on top of. However, thanks to the carelessness of the architects, the base of Block 7 of the Lotus Riverside apartment complex in Shanghai, China, ended up being made of exactly that. Now, this predicament started when the builders of the block decided to dig out a 4.6 meter deep underground parking garage for
That is the scariest thing that maybe any architect fears. Mud, sand, horrible location to build on with the ground material. Those are the number one things that any architect fears to build on, because they are just so unreliable, and it's not the perfect type of material you want to build on because of this exact reason. But let's continue with what he was saying. I guess the parking garage was the reason.
Now, this predicament started when the builders of the block decided to dig out a 4.6 meter deep underground parking garage for the complex. Yet rather than move the dirt to a secure location, it was brought to a landfill beside a creek. The weight of this dirt then caused the riverbank of the creek to collapse, and as a result, water began to seep into the ground beneath Block 7, making the dirt surrounding the apartment block wet, soft, and ultimately muddy. This was not stable enough to hold its weight in place. As a result, on June 27th of 2009, the entire building came tumbling down, trapping and killing one unfortunate worker who was left inside. Number 7.
Thankfully, they knew. Listen, it's horrible that one person passed, but thankfully nobody else was in there, because if that was an active building, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was the building that collapsed in Florida. I forgot what the name of the building was. That recently happened in Miami. It was an apartment complex, and it fell due to just negligence. They knew that building was going to collapse soon, and they just didn't do anything about it due to the budget cuts. I don't think they had enough money to fix it. And the reason why that building collapsed was because of the parking lot garage collapsed. It's a little bit different, but it was, again, due to water. Water is the biggest disaster to deal with. So, but with this one, I'm a bit confused. Is the original site didn't have mud on it, but I think due to the weight of them keeping the dirt, the building was located on a riverside, and they dug the dirt in that area to create a parking garage. And they didn't get rid of the dirt, I guess they kept it. And because of the weight, additionally, the dirt and the parking garage, it then collapsed the side of the river, and the water from the river seeped into the parking garage, and that dirt made it muddy, and that is how the building fell over. But I'm just confused on, I guess, the barrier of the river when they created that was not considering the buildings or all that weight, I guess. Yeah, that's interesting.
2009.
Usually that's another thing that people always say, or architects always say to pay attention to, is what else is previously there that was already built, because the things that are already have been built there on your site most likely have not been predicting that something else would be built later on top of it. You should always consider the other things that are built around it, because they maybe weren't thinking or considering what else would be built in that area, so they didn't consider the extra weight. So they probably didn't build for it. And usually, most of the time, they're trying to do what's the cheapest and what they can get by at this time period, and they're not really thinking about the future. So that's why it's always best to also consider what has already been built there.
Number 7. The Standard Oil Building. Completed in Chicago in 1973. At the time of its construction, the Standard Oil Building, which is today known as the Aon Center, was the third largest skyscraper in the city. Impressively, once completed, it was officially the world's tallest marble-clad building, as it was sheathed entirely with 43,000 slabs of Italian Carrara marble.
That I'm already kind of guessing that building was probably very heavy.
However, it was this foreign marble that ended up causing a lot more trouble than it was worth. That's because it was soon apparent that the Carrara marble was far too thin to be used as a building material, as it took
Oh wow, so I was wrong. It's too thin.
only 1 year for a massive 160-kilogram slab to fall from the building, smashing into the roof of the nearby Prudential Center. And while nothing was done immediately as a result, a 1985 investigation found that the marble was cracking and bowing across the exterior. And thus, between 1990 and 1992, the entire building was refaced with Mount Airy white granite at an estimated cost of over $80 million. When you consider that this was more than half of what it cost to build the skyscraper in the first place, it goes without saying that this was a pretty costly mistake.
When I first initially heard marble, I thought that must be very heavy, especially if it's built all the way from the bottom to the top. Usually, the higher you go, the less weight you want. It's like the bottom is the heaviest, and then as you get to the highest point of the building, the lighter the materials should be. So the fact that the material was too thin and started bowing, which is like it was bending and cracking, I guess there was a reason to why that buildings had never been using that material to begin with, and they ended up having to change it into the granite. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I was not aware of that. Anyways, I think that is all the reaction we're gonna do today. I think we did like 6 or 7 different architectural fails. If you guys like this video, please let me know down in the comments, as well as if you have any other videos that I can react to or you want to have a reaction on, let me know. I'd love to check them out. I thought that this would be interesting to see someone who went to school for it reacting to fails of it. I feel like it would be entertaining. So let me know what you think. Also, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in one of my next ones. Bye!